for watching us. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, click bell icon to get all notifications. আমাদের অনুষ্ঠান দেখবার জন্য আপনাদের ধন্যবাদ। দয়া করে লাইক, শেয়ার, কমেন্ট, সাবস্ক্রাইব করে আমাদের আরও উৎসাহ দান করুন। বাংলার বধূদের মৌন জীবনের যাবতীয় অনুষ্ঠান বাংলার বধূদের ইউটিউব চ্যানেল এবং বাংলার বধূদের ফেসবুক পেজ থেকে জনসাধারণের জন্য প্রচারিত হচ্ছে। এই অনুষ্ঠানে আমরা অত্যন্ত সংবেদনশীল বিষয় নিয়ে আলোচনা করে থাকি। তাই যে কোনো মন্তব্য বা প্রশ্ন নিজের দায়িত্বে করুন। নাম প্রকাশে অনিচ্ছুক যারা কোনো প্রশ্ন করতে চান তারা আমাদের নিচে পিন করে দেওয়া গুগল ফর্মে অ্যানোনিমাসলি প্রশ্ন করতে পারেন। আপনার নাম পরিচয় গোপন থাকবে। ধন্যবাদ। বাংলার বধূ's মৌন জীবন program is broadcasted to all viewers from Banglar Bodhu YouTube channel and Facebook page. In this program, we discuss very personal and sensitive topics. So, please ask questions or make any comments responsibly. Those who don't want to disclose their names, please submit the questions anonymously through Google form pinned below. Your name and other personal identities will never be disclosed. Thank you.
Hello, welcome and namaskar to all the viewers who are watching now or would be watching in future. Here I am, Shampa Moitra, along with my friends from Team Monojibon. It's an initiative by Banglar Bodho community, which intends to the social causes, the social issues that are there around us, which are disturbing and which needs to be addressed and discussed. We are a handful professionals from different walks of life. We have lawyers like Debaroti, we have doctors, we have psychologists, and we have social activists and entrepreneurs who are, with all intent, have teamed to help support, discuss the different issues with our community members and generally, whoever would be watching our channel. So do subscribe Banglar Bodho's channel for more such programs. And if you are a professional who would be interested in, participating in such cause, for such cause or in such discussions, please feel free to reach out. There are, contact descriptions and link to the Banglar Bodho page. Please reach out, connect with us. We would be happy to have you on board for these causes. For today's discussion, we have chosen a very critical, very burning issue, which is domestic violence. And when we discuss domestic violence, it cannot be limited to a particular gender, right? So today we will be discussing domestic violence as is, which is a kind of behavior or pattern of behavior directed towards a family member or a partner, which is type where it is to inflict power force or to maintain power relation and control that particular family member or partner, which is of a very intimidating nature. And in this power position, many times the subjected family member or partner feels intimidated, threatened, and suffocated. So these kind of behaviors can be directed towards anyone, irrespective of their gender, relation, and their race, creed, social, and sexual status, basically anyone. So we will be discussing domestic violence in broader spectrum today. And I'm fortunate to have with us today Dr. Debaruti Haldar. She is a lawyer, a pro bono advocate, a social activist in the sense that she's a victimology, cyber victimology specialist and author. So, Debaruti, welcome to the show. And along with Debaruti, I have Lopa Mudra Banerjee with us from Toronto. Debaruti is from Gujarat, while Lopa is here with us from Toronto. And Lopa is a corporate professional, but not just a corporate professional, she is a social entrepreneur as well. She has founded a non-profit organization, Creative Buds, which is working towards empowering women and children through education and community services. Welcome, Lopa, and it's a pleasure to have both of you for such a interesting and intriguing discussion. So I would request Lopa to share a case which she has very recently shared with me. We can start with the story you wanted to share, Lopa.
Thank you, Shampa. Thank you, and welcome, Debaruti, too, along with this. And hello to all the viewers across the globe who are watching this and who may be watching this later on once the link is shared on the YouTube channel. Shampa, this is a very, very burning, as you mentioned, it's a burning issue. It's a very sensitive issue as well. And it is not only restricted to a particular gender, and it is not restricted to a particular relation. It could be, as per the UN description, it says anybody in the domestic household, and it is not limited to just physical abuse, and it could be just a mental abuse. So it is important that we as women come forward and talk about it. We share about it because many of the viewers or many of our friends in the community, when they listen to this, they can probably identify with it, and they will feel empowered to come forward and take help. One of the most important things which I realized, because I've been working, not only I've been working with women in Toronto who are in shelters, but I have seen, like growing up, very, very closely, I have experienced, and I have firsthand experience, rather, I would say, of various relationships going through this abuse and violence. So I will come to that, but it is also what I realized is it is important to understand that you are being violated, because most situations I have seen that, first of all, they don't realize that it is a violation. You're being violated. So,
Absolutely, that's true.
yep. And Devarati, of course, can share a lot because she must be day in, day out, maybe going through, listening to so many cases around her. Um, let me share a story. I'm going to share this, for example, take it probably a little child, a girl child, and in her family, right from when she probably gained some conscious, or when she started understanding, what she has been experiencing is almost every day seeing her mother being violated, either by abusing or verbal abuses, hurling different kinds of, I would say, nasty words. And sometimes that used to go up to physical abuse as well, which we commonly in our Bengali language, we call it Gaye Hat Tola. So, for example, this girl has been witnessing that right from the beginning. Every day she would see her parents getting into verbal spat, which is like screaming, shouting, and then it ends up being into violent violent interactions. And that's how she used to go to sleep. Next morning again, it seemed like, oh, almost nothing happened. And this girl, whenever she was going out, she would think that whenever I'm walking out to go to school, she would always think, did my neighbors hear it? How will my mom go out and face these things? How will she face the neighbors? Are the neighbors watching me, what I was doing at that time? So this is how the time passed by, and she kept seeing that this being continued, and the lady of the house still not doing anything, but every day going through the chores of life, and then also going to, as if the violence or the abuse is another chore or a daily routine to go through. The girl felt very sorry for her mother. She also loved her father, and she was in a turmoil that, should I go and talk to my dad about it? Because my dad might not like it, because I love my dad. What do I do to comfort my mother? Because I love her too. But I'm gagged. I don't know what what should I say? So the girl grows up, and with a lot of maturity, she was like, I will never go through this ever. I will make sure that I will always stand up for this. Unfortunately, the girl gets married, and she gets into the same routine as she had seen growing up her mother go through. The same routine that she hated all her life. Now she is getting abused, and she was like, I'm educated. At one point, she thought, because my mother cannot get out because she's not as educated, maybe she cannot support herself. But when this girl, she's educated, and the person she got married to is also a professional, very highly educated person. And she never thought that a highly educated person will show the same behavioral patterns. She was pretty surprised. And she was taken aback. It took her for a while to understand that she also fell into the same pattern of domestic violence. When she reached out to her parents, this time she thought she would be getting a little bit of help because they have gone through it. They might feel, unfortunately, she didn't get any help. That's the time um, she became pregnant. She had a daughter. And with turn of life, she started thinking, she started seeing herself in her daughter. What if the same child, it's the same child who is seeing the same things? And that's where the girl decides, no, I'm not going to raise my daughter the same way I grew up. She took a bold decision to come out, call it a stop, Being in a relationship that is stale, that is toxic, is not good for a child. She's educated. She took a bold step to come out. And mind you, when she took that step, the hardest thing was not the domestic violence. The hardest thing was non cooperation from the society when she decided to step out because she got judged. She got to hear words like sentences like, so what? It's her husband. So what? It's her husband who is violating her. So what? She could have just adjusted. She could have compromised, but she could not understand what kind of compromises do I need to make a domestic violence as a daily routine or part of my behavioral routine. So she came out and she started living on her own. She stood up. And when people saw that she was strong enough, she didn't bow down, she got married again. She found a partner and who respected her child. And her daughter came back to her and said, Mama, thank you. You don't know how much I was suffering through the trauma, seeing you getting violated, beaten every night. Thank you for giving me a life. That moment, that girl, that empowered her. That made her, did the right thing. Now, at this point, Shampa, I'll come to you. There are different psychological aspects that might be coming in. The girl did go back. Some people might think, why didn't the girl go back and take her mother out of it as well? She tried it. I will come to the Bharati as well on this. She even filed a 498, but then under pressure she had to take it back. It was taken back. So she went back to living in the same situation. She went. I For me, I thought that she got comforted being into that situation, being violated every day. So that's what is the story. That's what is my story. And I'll come to you, Shampa. If you can help um, us understand the different aspects, psychological, social aspects that in this story that you see.
Uh, First thing first, it's such a overwhelming story, a very overwhelming journey for that girl, I must say. And here, what we are seeing is normalization of domestic violence. And this is something very common and, uh, most often it happens. And if you look at the entire story, Lopa, it's not just the mother who was used to, who got used to, and who found, who in whose life the normalization of domestic violence is happening. Even the child herself was so used to of that domestic violence that it took her a while to identify when she was also a victim of domestic violence. To
Exactly.
begin with, as a child, also, she was a victim of domestic violence. The father was not just violating her mother, the father was very much violating her right to a normal, natural, healthy childhood was violated by her father. So not just the mother, but the child herself was violated as much. I'm sure Debaruti will agree on this point that domestic violence, when we are talking about it on a greater, on a broader spectrum, it is not just a woman who's victim here. And that's what we are discussing, and I would always want to bring it up time and again that it is not just a woman. Definitely women are the a woman would constitute the biggest number, but it is not just woman, not just wife, but many more. In this case, these are two women, a mother and the child. Both are being first violated by the father. Even the girl child is as much getting used to with the violence that she is actually not able to, as a wife, identify that she is being violated time and again. It took her such a long time. But definitely, being a different generation, having that education, perhaps she was walking, which gave her the strength. And when she saw her own child in her own position, and she could see the reflection of her mother's life in her life, and her life's reflection in her own child's life. So we all know that what we cannot do for ourselves, where we cannot stand up for our own rights, when it comes to our own children, we women can go to any extent to safeguard our children's right and their life. Perhaps the mother could not do in this case because she didn't have the resources, the confidence, the education, and financial stability, which here in this case this girl had. So she knew that she could give her child a better life compared to what she is in right now. So that's the reason she could take this step. But what appals me is that the behavior, the approach of our society and the family. That's another purpose of having these discussions, and I would always suggest that we have such discussions time and again, because we have to do a lot around the mindset change. Mindset changing is not possible through some legal actions. Our constitution, our different sections of Indian penal code has lot of rights in our favor, in favor of victims. But how many of us will take that stand? And kaise, I mean, how will they take up that courage, how will they muster that courage and take that stand when they don't know that they'll be judged by thousands, their own family to begin with, their parents, their in-laws, their sometimes even children, and then the other relations in the periphery, neighbors, friends, society, colleagues, who, I mean, who else not, I mean, किसी को भी ले लो, whoever would it be, they would just judge the woman. No one, or not just woman. In this case, I would say that most of the times a victim is judged, a victim is further victimized.
Exactly.
If in even in case of a male victim, rarely do we understand reality and that victim's perspective. The society would rather in that case support the woman who's a violator, because that's the psyche of a abuser or a violator. They play with the victim's psyche, they play with the victim's social vulnerability, emotional vulnerability, and their if in certain cases there is some economic restraint or economic dependence, then they play around that. So when one person is an abuser, that abuser is always working on those lines. Like you were mentioning, the hurling of abuses, the physical abuse. So it is never just one type of. So we all know that domestic violence can be sexual, verbal, emotional, physical, all sort of social, financial. So in this case, and in most of the cases, it is not just physical or not just a certain type of. This girl, since you must have learned it from the girl and her perspective, so you might not be knowing there could be some sexual aspect as well,
Absolutely.
because it is always in it is called a violence, It's a cycle basically. There will be mode of physical violence, there will be hurling of abuses which is verbal and emotional, then there will be situations where the person would be socially, the subject or the target will be socially demeaned, and that is more of a social stigma that is being created for this person, which will create further threat and fear in that victim. And there will be sexual abuse sometimes, they or threat of sexual abuse, and a lot of emotional manipulation as well, social pressure. So everything put together, when when you were sharing the story of the mother, I could figure out that she felt more vulnerable, yet she felt there is some sort of security. Even if I am subjected to this torture, she never realized that in spite of giving her child, her daughter, all the education and everything, what she failed to give her child, that girl, is the emotional security, is
Absolutely.
the a very calm or a normal emotional social life. The fear that you were talking, that she would fear every day, what my neighbors and friends are thinking about me, they might be knowing, they might be guessing, I don't know what they think about me. These, perhaps the mother never realized that what kind of emotional trauma this girl has been through. She always felt, okay, my husband is there, I'm getting physically abused, emotionally abused, I will, just say what we say in Bengali, সহ্য করে নেবো আমি, আমার আমি সহ্য করে নেবো। কিন্তু what she failed to understand যে she was perhaps tolerating this because of her own daughter, so that the daughter gets the good life, good education, and can for her generation, maybe she was thinking, I can marry her off nicely to a suitable groom. This was her aim for this was the reason she was tolerating. What she failed to realize that in the process she gave her daughter a very traumatic childhood, which led to a normalization of violence, not only in her life but in her daughter's life. And that's one reason the history was repeated, because sometimes if this girl was able to, let's say, if this girl was not has not seen domestic violence, she wouldn't be able to identify with those violences, and could get normalized, and she would have rather protested much earlier, because
Exactly.
those were not something that she has ever witnessed. If she had not witnessed domestic violence, so in this case it was not that she was not able to identify when she was violated. She took a while to accept that it is happening with her as well. She never thought that with a educated life partner also, and of her generation, someone of her generation, she would be targeted to such a violence again. She never expected that, but it happened. And it took her a while because she was actually not able to come up with that protest. It's only when her daughter was in the same situation as she was, she had to muster the courage.
One
So I
point
felt
here, yeah,
mhm,
Shampa, very, very, very good analysis of this. At one point, you're very right in saying that it takes a while. Once you're normalized into abuse and all these things, it takes a while for the person to understand, is it really happening with me? Because we see it in movies and we always
true,
identify that as, oh, it might be happening with a certain kind of social strata people, not with the educated. So it
right.
takes a while for a person to understand that, how can an educated person, like another example I can say is, this lady is, I read it somewhere, this lady is a principal of a very renowned school. So
Mm-hmm.
she's very highly educated. And here, every day, she would ensure that her daughter-in-law is subjected to verbal abuses. So domestic violence is not only something that a husband or a wife does over um, uh,
Absolutely.
on the spouse. It could be even the in laws doing it, or it could be the daughter in law or the son in law
Absolutely.
doing it on the parents as well, or the son or the daughter. Sometimes I have heard a recent story where a woman who was violated for a long time by her husband, but when she stood through the storm, her sons did not spare her too. Her sons and daughters, who should have empathized with her, instead of that, they actually violated her too, leaving her on the
I want
streets.
to I want to add here something
Yeah.
from the social psychological perspective. It's a pattern, it's a trait of a perpetrator or a abuser that especially in a in a partner space that they use children for abuse. They very often use children for to abuse.
Mm,
Sometimes let's say in this girl's case, you never know, the father might have even used threats on those lines that I will ruin your daughter's life, or I will ruin her, I will not support her education or upbringing if you do not stay put with the violence, with whatever I do. And sometimes these perpetrators, they might even say these even the husband or the wife, whoever is the perpetrator, could use the child, saying that let's say, I have heard people saying कि ये तो कोई काम की नहीं है, तू तो you are just worthless, you are good for nothing, uh, but you just lie like a showpiece or a furniture. You have no worth, you are of no use.
yeah,
And the children also, when it's a repeat mechanism which happens, the children get to hear the same things time and again, and they develop the understanding, if the mother is not, or if the whoever is here targeted, if that person is not standing up for his or her right, then the children get used to, yeah, this is fact, this is right, this is what it is. So this is how the children are manipulated, and as they grow up, they think whatever has been done has been was right. And that's again the abusers technique. It is one of the techniques where they try to normalize or validate violence, where they say that you are what of this, तो लात के ही काबिल है, तो
exactly.
थप्पड़ के ही काबिल है, तू अ, ऐसे ही तेरे लिए यही सही है, यू आर मेंट फॉर abuse only. It's your behavior that is what is making me angry, and that's why I'm doing this. So these things, and the children, when they see, no, mom, why did you have to say this? You should have followed dad, you should have obeyed what he said, आपने ही गलती करी. And that is how the children are used, the situation is manipulated, the victim blaming is happening. This is how the psyche works on those lines. So I think we can move on to the legal aspects. We have a question from one some from our readers, or from the
Viewers.
form, Debaroti viewers, that what are the steps that one needs to take if one is subjected to domestic violence? What should one do if they are able to identify that they are being violated?
Okay. The first and foremost, we have to understand which jurisdiction it's happening. As I had been listening to both of you, and as Shampa has very correctly pointed out, and as also Lopa has also mentioned, especially it goes to you, Shampa, there are layers of domestic violence. So one can be just mental harassment, the other can be physical and mental harassment. Obviously, whenever there is a physical harassment, obviously it comes with a package of mental harassment also. The next can also be something which is related to marital rape. Marital rape, physical harassment, and mental harassment. Why I say about the jurisdiction is that in certain jurisdictions, uh, even if it is an NRI couple sitting in some other jurisdiction, if this thing happens, and if, as Lopa mentioned, that the child goes to the school or the child goes to any child care institution where the like caregivers or the counselors identify that the child has witnessed certain things which may amount to domestic violence, not only against the woman but also against the child. As you two have correctly pointed out, that it is not only the domestic violence against the woman but also the child gets included in that. So in such cases, what happens is that, let me begin with the foreign countries, that if an NRI or if a woman belonging to Indian jurisdiction is settled, or staying outside, but she is not a permanent resident of that country, what happens? And then I will talk about what happens when we are seeing this thing from the Indian perspective. Suppose, for example, if this woman is now situated in a country which is any common law country, and where marital rape is also recognized as an offense. So the first and foremost thing that happens is that, she can contact the local police of that country or of that place where she is situated right now. And as the things will go on, that it is violence, physical violence, if the child is included, then it will be immediately considered as not only violence against woman but also against child. So in such cases, the importance will also go towards saving the child from the domestic violence. Now, in such cases, we have seen many cases where immediately the child will be segregated from the parents who are fighting, or the mother who is being victimized. And the child will be kept, it can be foster home, it can be for temporary place of security, safety, etc. From there, the embassies will be contacting each other, and the child will be sent back to the country where the child actually originally belongs. That means where she's he is basically resident or domiciled. And following that, the mother will also be given first aid or some hospital treatments, medical treatment, etc. She will also be questioned as what had happened to her, and thereafter she can also be sent back to the country. Coming to this thing, that what happens to the perpetrator irrespective of the gender. As we know, as Shampa, you have correctly mentioned, that most of the times we do get to see that the victims are generally the women. So in such cases, we do get to see, like I did get just got to see a question here, that what happens if the woman is not self sufficient. Most of the times we do get to see that when the woman accompanies the husband, to a different country, and she gets violated over there, she may not have her own what do you call, bank balance or money to come back to the country where she basically originated from. So in such cases, the government or some NGOs also, along with the government, they can take the responsibility of sending her back, and after coming back here, she can get reunited with the child. But if the counselor feels that the child has been violated, because if it comes to the domestic violence against the child, if the counselor gives a report that the child has been violated, mental harassment I'm talking about, also physical harassment, if the child has been violated, where the child says, the child's expression also says that both the parents are responsible equally, because obviously the child, if it is a very young child, the child will not be able to say that who was the victim, who was the perpetrator. The child will be seeing what, like what Lopa said about this lady, that the father is harassing the mother. That is something which the mother will always try to hide from the baby to the toddler. And thereafter, as a repercussion, the mother might not be caring the child. And at some point of time, because the mother is frustrated, she might try to express her anger on the child, because the child will be pulling her back. from satisfying the husband in every sense. Now, what happens is that the child then will be telling the counselor that my mother has also done the similar things, like, she has beaten, she has scolded me, etc. And my father has also done the similar thing. So, in that case, please do understand that the child might not be given back to the parents. The child will be handed over to the closest family member. This is something which we have understood from the perspective of the child rights. Like, now that in India, our domestic violence laws are also expanding. Now, coming to the question of what will happen if the wife or the woman, she comes out with an with a opinion or an expression that I have been violated, and because of that the child had been violated. In all such cases, the burden of proof actually, very unfortunately, depends upon the woman. It's the the twisting thing of law, because the woman has to prove that she has been violated. As I mentioned, in any jurisdiction, basically, if it is seen, that means any sort of violative activities are seen, then immediately she will be given medical help. If it is in such a condition, if the woman is found in such a condition where she is bleeding heavily, where she is in a vegetative condition, etc., the police in whichever country this has happened is bound to arrest that perpetrator. And also, if the perpetrator has fled away, that means here the husband or anybody from the in-laws, the police will start investigation. And the wife or the victim, she will be given some kind of medical treatment, then she will be sent back. Now let me come back to India. What happens, what is the state of affairs in India? As we know that we have our domestic violence prevention laws, we have our IPC provisions also. In all cases, basically, Domestic Violence Act, I would rather say that it is broader, because if we see section 498A of the Indian Penal Code, it is very much specific towards the women. But we are getting to see that the laws are being misused also. But again, let me concentrate on this, that what happens to the woman if the woman is being victimized at home. We do not recognize marital rape still now in India, but it can have a bypass thing, that it can be considered as inclusive of domestic violence. But here also the burden of proof is on the woman. However, let me talk from the general perspective. If the woman is being victimized, this may be considered as a non-bailable offense, may be considered as bailable offense also. The police can take the cognizance, that means the police can immediately start taking the actions, they can start investigation, etc. The woman would be given the medical help as well as the legal help. And most importantly, if the woman feels that yes, she is going through such kinds of domestic violence, she can contact the legal aid cell. Every court has got legal aid cell. This is called as district legal aid cell. And in the high courts we have got state legal services authorities. In the Supreme Court also we have got the Supreme Court's legal state authorities, which is generally connected with NALSA, so National Legal Services Authorities. So if the woman feels that no, I cannot hire a lawyer because I do not have the money, she can straight away go to the District Legal Services Authority. There, pro bono lawyers who are appointed by the government. So she does not have to pay anything. So there she can simply tell her problem. Generally, there are reception desks are also there. If she has undergone any sort of physical violence, etc., where she felt that no, I cannot go to the doctors or the clinics because as you two mentioned about the the shame, the societal shame, the familial shame. So there, basically, if anybody comes with a domestic violence issue, she would be treated first medically. If there is any need for first aid, etc., then the legal aid starts. So in that, if she's in such a position, say for example, as I stated, there are different layers of domestic violence. For example, if the woman has been thrown out of the house, the child, whether it is a baby or toddler, or if it is a child under the age of 12, etc., he or she has been forcefully being kept with the father's family. But the child actually is very much dependent. Obviously every child is dependent on the mother, and the mother has not been explained that why the child is being kept with the father, etc. The mother needs the custody of the child, depending upon the father or the in-laws character. And obviously when this has happened, she has been thrown out of the house, she has been abandoned by the family. That's what we the legal terms that we have used. So in all such cases, the woman can definitely complain to the legal aid cell. I'm not using the term police, please do note that. Legal aid cell. And then the legal aid cell, district legal services authority, which is basically headed by a judicial magistrate. So she or he, that is the judicial magistrate, can take the cognizance in this case depending upon the testimony of the victim, and she can direct or he can direct the police investigation. And in every case, if suppose for example if it is mental harassment case also, the woman would be immediately restored to the position. That means the with the help of the DLSA, sorry, with the help of the police, because the moment it comes to the DLSA, the judicial magistrate will also ask the police officers to accompany the woman to get back to the house and to restore the conjugal rights. Suppose for example when the woman has registered the complaint with the DLSA and also the police station, if the woman goes to the police station, no problem for that, but I would rather suggest that it is better if you go to the DLSA, because there you are basically getting two things in one. That is both the lawyers advice and also the police help also. In all such cases, you do get to see that suppose for example the police mediation, we call it as police mediation. If the police officers, they feel that it is basically a case of I would not say that heavy domestic violence, but it's a tiff between the husband and wife, they may take the cognizance of the cases, but not in a heavy legal term. They may do some kinds of mediation. They may make the couple to stay together again and put a monitoring kind of thing. That means that every day you have to tell, the wife will tell, and in such cases lady police officers will also be monitoring that how is the child, how is the wife, etc. Suppose for example if this is not possible and the lady has undergone extreme violence, that is physical violence, and it has affected her mindset to such an extent that she feels threatened to go back to the house. And her parents, like what Lopa stated about this lady, her parents are basically telling that this is everything is okay, because after all this is your husband, you have to stay with the husband. Please do note that presently we are in 2022. The courts have started recognizing if the wife says no, it means no. Any case, if it is, you call it as marital relationship, if it is any sort of violence, any sort of as Shampa stated, that and any sort of state of behavior where the wife feels that this is actually going to harm me, even if it is a slap, so in all such cases, if the wife feels that I'm not going to go back because I'm going to be physically harassed, I'm going to be physically harmed, then definitely the wife can go to the police station, also legal aid cell, register the complaint, and she can start staying. Please note this thing, in the same house where the husband stays. She has every right to do that. Why? Because our laws have recognized wives' right over the marital property. Now comes the question that when both the husband and wife who are basically fighting, who are at the tiff, how can they stay under the same roof? Now again we have to see that domestic violence law and also section 498A, section 498A specifically mentions about the cruelty to wife by husband, husband's in-laws, etc. If the wife is restored in the same property, basically it implies that she is restored in the same property, she can stay with her child, but the husband and the in-laws cannot touch her. That means that until and unless the case is resolved and the wife decides that in this same property I'm not going to stay, the wife says so, the husband or the in-laws family, they cannot do it. It's a kind of submissive injunction. You see, injunction means that prohibitory action, you cannot do it. If in that situation, if the husband or the family member starts hurling abuses like what Lupa said, you know every hurling of the abuses may be counted as an offense, provided again the wife feels that yes, this is an abuse. Now comes the question is that if the wife feels that no, let what happen, I'm not going to report the matter to the police, I'm going to stay like this, nobody can actually do it, because until and unless the child is being affected, the child, like what I just stated, that she goes to the school or she goes to any other caregiving institution, and the nowadays we are getting to see with the Juvenile Justice Care and Protection Act also getting amended in 2015, and that has basically joined hand with Domestic Violence Act that has come in the 2005. So in all such cases, what we are getting to see is that if the counselor, if the teacher if the caregiver in the school understands, or she's communicated or he's communicated, that the child is not safe in that same house where the parents are staying, the mother and father are not having a very friendly relationship, but there is a like submissive current going on between the two parties, and the child is getting affected. It may not be the same case like what happens in the other jurisdictions, but it may be in the case that the court may order, for the sake of the child, the mother needs to stay outside, the mother and or the father needs to stay outside. That means the child should be given proper protection. Now comes to this question, is that for the sake of the child, would the wife be willing to stay outside if she feels that no, I can somehow adjust? Now comes the question, you have to give more importance to the benefit of the child, to the welfare of the child. So what the courts say and what the law says, then let the child stay in a safer place. You too try to adjust. And if you feel that no, this is nothing but this is everyday thing, I do not consider this as a domestic violence, that means I'm accepting these things. Now comes the question, if you may allow me, if somebody witnesses this, if any friend sees this, or if any relative sees this, I have seen many times the wife starts crying over the phone and says that that every day I get a beating, but in the night we are like honeymoon couple. There's nothing like that, but again in the morning, I don't know why my husband gets so much jittery with me, and they start fighting. If the person who may be like Shompa or Lopa, who understand about the psychology of the person, who may understand that no, this is not a very normal situation, what will you do as a witness or as a bystander? Please do note that if the wife or the victim, I'm telling about the husband also, if in case both the spouses, they feel that no, something is wrong going there, if they call you, that call record can be an evidence. And do remember that if you have not recorded that call also, and if you feel that no, this is an alarming thing, you can definitely alarm the police station if possible. But again, I'm telling that the police will not actually take the FIR, because it completely depends upon the victim. However, what I would suggest, and what also the law says, is that if any witnesses, or rather I would say bystander, if they get to see that such kinds of not so normal things are happening, like what Lopa was telling, that the child always feels that, did the neighbor hear me, or did the neighbor is going to tell something to my mother? So if, suppose for example, if the neighbor has heard that something is going on, then definitely the neighbor can consider that the inviting the wife to come and stay. Never force the wife, never force the husband that you come and stay with me for some time and then we will go to the police. Never try to brainwash, because you never know, this is something which is a very very sensitive relationship. You never know when the parties take a u-turn, and if the parties take a u-turn, then the person who is trying to help, that person will become an enemy, and that person may be taken to the court by both these parties who are supposed to be fighting against each other, stating that he or she is the person who is trying to cause domestic violence between us. So this is, again, that's the reason that this is very very sensitive issue, where only when the victim thinks, the victim feels that yes, it is a domestic violence, the case can be taken to the police station, the case can be taken to the legal aid cell also. But again, I'm telling, if you feel that you are getting to see somebody who is victimized by domestic violence, etc., it is better if you contact some experts, legal experts, if you contact even legal aid cell also, because legal aid cell is not police. Legal aid cell basically comprises of paralegal volunteers and panel lawyers, and at the top there is this judicial magistrate is there. So paralegal volunteers may come to the house, may be willing to help for mediation also. Obviously, don't think that this is the ultimate mediation, because they're trained paralegal volunteers, they know about the law, they would also be speaking in the same language as I am telling, that are you willing to come and report the matter to us? If it is no, then please be aware that these are your rights and this is what is not normal. If you're willing to come with us and report the matter, we are willing to give you the shelter, we are willing to give you the protection. This is the situation now in India. It's a very positive situation. Now coming to the question of, suppose for example, if the in-laws are doing, the husband is not staying with the wife, or say for example, if the husband is like 24 hours, or say for example in 24 hours, 12 hours he's outside, and within that 12 hours it is the in-laws who are doing. When I say it is the in-laws, that means there is no sexual harassment, it cannot be. presumably. However, if it is like sexual harassment from the father-in-law to the daughter-in-law, or the daughter-in-law to the other members, that say for example the brother-in-laws, etc., there can be so many types of sexual harassments. So in such cases also, the wife can consider, or the victim can consider, reporting the matter to the, again, legal aid cell or to the police officers, stating that this is happening and I need protection, I need some kind of legal protection. Obviously that can be considered as a complaint, and proceedings can start.
I'm just totally
Thank you,
mesmerized.
Devaruti. Right. And with the, the amount of knowledge Devaruti has, and the way she shares, yeah, it's so informative. And I must say, Devaruti, you have already covered quite a few questions that came to us, including, the bystanders, standpoint, what should a bystander be, doing if they witness. And that's a very interesting perspective, and yet a very helpless one, I must say, because
Yes,
it entirely depends on the victim. And
yes,
many a times victims are at a different mindset, at a different mental level altogether, where, like we were already discussing, that normalization of victim blaming, normalization of violence is so strong that they take a lot of times, and they many times they are not able to at all come out of it. And
yes,
while you have covered most of it, there are two areas which I really wanted more, light from your side. One is marital rape. You have already mentioned about it, and we have actually covered domestic violence, wise sexual abuse, and marital rape. But so I was actually exploring on my marital rape, and I was appalled, I was surprised to see that the way one has to address this in India. And I don't know when and how we will finally criminalize marital rape,
let me
but
tell you,
until it doesn't.
let me interrupt you. The
Hmm.
process has started. The process has started.
Okay.
If you have
Okay.
noticed, the recent court judgments, there was a very
Right,
recent
few.
judgment, I think it came up
Hmm.
this week or the last week, where one of the high courts in India stated that
Hmm.
if the sex worker can say no, then what the wife has done to say not to say no. It completely depends upon the consent of the wife. But again, as I mentioned, that marital rape has not been considered as an offense. Obviously, I'm not talking about the child. That means that 16 to 18 years. That is basically not only marital rape. That is illegal sexual penetration, we
Child.
call, and it will be
Right.
under pocket also. But let me say that
Right.
the ball has started rolling, and that's a very good point. We are expecting that like in future, in very near future, marital rape may be considered as an offense. But this consent and consensual relationship will be considered when we talk about domestic violence also. That means that when somebody comes up and says, a woman comes up and says that say for example, if I get some permission from both of you to speak about this, I have seen, basically this is my personal experience also, I have seen woman, especially new mother, feeding the child, because all of us know that when a woman becomes a mother, it is almost an hourly job to feed the child. So when the woman is feeding the child, husband, basically I'll tell, tried to snatch the baby and to have the sexual intercourse with the mother. Can you consider this as marital rape? What do you suggest? It may be, because in such case the woman cannot give consent. I mean, even if the woman's character is something which both of you would agree, and I think all of us who are in this discussion would agree, that whatever type of woman, generally whenever the woman is victimized, the law says we should not consider the character. But whatever the woman is, no mother will like to have any sort of sexual connection with the husband when she's taking care, when she's nursing the baby. But I have seen this kinds of things happening where the child is just born to, like, 1 year, or rather I would say 7 months old, where the husband said to the mother, now leave the child and satisfy me. Now, suppose if somebody says this kind of statement also, that is also considered as mental harassment, that will also come under domestic violence law, provided the mother or the wife considers this as violence.
Good insight.
In this, yeah, definitely good insight. In this case, in this particular case that you were mentioning, even the child is being violated. So it is a,
Yes, yes,
violence from both side, for both
of
rather,
course.
not both side. I mean for both. But
Yes,
Debaruti, what if in the cases where there is no physical violence, there is no such emotional abuse. It is only the sexual bit, it is only marital rape, or rather maybe the woman is not even considering it as a rape because the nature of our socialization is such that if you are married to a man, you are meant to satisfy their
it's a
sexual
package.
needs,
It's
is
considered as a package.
yes, is
Yes.
what is considered. So let's say if the woman is identifying and it is just this and nothing else, is there a provision through domestic violence acts that the woman can uh, uh, get some justice? Let's say, is there any provisions of getting divorce basis these kind of actions if that is
Okay.
happening?
Okay. Let me say that if, as you're mentioning, if there is only marital rape, and what I understand from what you are asking is that if there is non-consensual sexual connection,
Non-consensual sex, yes.
so in
Mhm.
such cases, obviously it comes in such a delicate manner that where the court has to go inside the bedroom of the couple to see that whether there was consent or not. Unfortunately, we do not have any provision as such whereby we can give the wife the right to say no to sexual relationship when both are in a consensual relationship. But this has been considered as a ground for divorce, unfortunately not against the woman, but many husbands, many men, they have sought for divorce basically on the ground that the wife has continued to reject sexual relationship with the husband. Unfortunately, the courts have basically ignored the fact that the wife had been very tired, maybe because she was working. They had the wife maybe physically not well, or mentally also she was down, so she could not be cooperative with the husband. Many cases we did get to see that the courts had granted divorce for the husband. But the positive point is that now that the courts has started on understanding that even if there is otherwise no physical violence as such, but when the wife wanted to say no, but she has been what should I say, that pressurized, that if you say no, that means you are not willing to stay in the marriage, that may be considered as something which is equal to marital rape. In such cases we are getting to see, I'm not saying that still now the provisions are there, but we are getting to see section 498A is being expanded, the domestic violence provision act, that is being expanded to include that the consent of the wife in such cases may be considered as against the, or for example protecting her against the domestic violence. uh, you may think that I'm just pulling the string, but the one answer is that we still do not have the provisions, but the interpretation of the statutes, it says to, like, I would not say that it has gone to 50% also, but at least up to 20% the courts have started understanding that this can be a issue for domestic violence. Coming to this thing that say for example, if the woman is all right, as you're mentioning that no physical violence, no mental harassment is also there. Again I'm telling that the what do you call, the burden of proof lies on the woman, where she has
Woman.
to prove that whenever you are basically trying to talk about non-consensual sexual connection, it will be connected with your mental harassment, which is connected with the domestic violence, even if it is for the 5 minutes to 1 hour to the entire night. In that case, what happens, like both of you and also other viewers who are experts in psychology and also physiology of the persons, you will get to see that if any person, not only woman, she sleeps or he sleeps with a tension in the mind, that will be reflected in the entire physiology, right? That he or she will be having digestion problems, he or she will be having some kind of blood pressure related problems, etc. And it will be having a long standing impact on the person concerned. And there can be so many things, but the courts will not wait for the woman or the man. I'm telling about irrespective of the gender, even though we want to emphasize more on women, that the court will not wait for 20 years for the woman to come back and say, I had domestic violence because there was a non consensual sexual relationship. No. If you're feeling that this is something which is not correct, or this is something which is it is coming to the mental harassment, please do come up and mention it. Please do come up and report it. Because the more you will keep quiet, you are basically erasing the evidences. Because your body gets
Right.
used to such kinds of tension. I mean, even though I'm not a medical person, but we do get to see this medical legal evidences also coming up. Your body gets to used gets used to these things. So finally, when you come to the court and say it was a mental harassment, obviously the court will ask, then how did you withstand this marriage for 20 years, for 10 years? Tell me. Suddenly now you are coming up and saying that you are not liking this. How did you stay there? So that is the reason, like what Lopa said, this lady who, especially for the daughter, hats off to the daughter who decided that I want to come out of this relationship, come what may. So in all such cases, please do understand that especially the children of the broken marriage, or the children who have seen their mothers getting violated, they
Violated.
probably yes, they probably would be very much matured enough to understand this is not correct. And in such cases, you get to see, unfortunately, it is our Indian mindset, you can say Asian mindset, you can say, the children from such kinds of marriages, where they're getting to they're growing up getting to see that the mother is basically keeping quiet and telling that no beta theek hai, that this is something which happens to every woman. This child, when she grows up or when he grows up, he or she tries to or gets to understand that this is not something with which I'm going to live. And you will get to see that when this child enters into a marriage, if it is especially for example arranged marriage, everybody, and when she starts telling that no, this is not correct, everybody will point to her mother, that, oh, your mother taught you this, oh, your mother did this. And by that, you will get to see that the child who is now standing against any sort of violence or violation, rather I would say, he or she gets targeted. Why are you saying that the small small things will also be considered as domestic violence? Why you can't adjust? But it is not correct.
Mhm.
It is not adjusting. It is something, when I want to live domestic violence, what is it? When in my domestic life I am not happy, you know my entire body and mind does not want to stay with it. And in this, I would
Right.
say that many cases, like what Lopa said, maybe you don't know that the mother probably had seen that the father is cheating, the father is having some kind of other relation also, and the mother is just keeping quiet because she's not financially independent. She wanted to stay back in the marriage for her children. Very nice idea, very nice mother, super mom. But as Shampa said, you are giving a wrong example to your child, or you're giving a wrong example to your children. In this case, I would also like to mention, what we did not earlier address. If any woman, or if even a man also gets to see that the other spouse is cheating, even though we do have some certain other provisions, our domestic violence laws have expanded to understand, to include this understanding that this extramarital affair in the nature of cheating will also be considered as domestic violence, especially mental harassment. See, when such things happen, you see, this man might be pervert, this man might be extremely sadistic. So he will be going outside enjoying, coming back and asking the wife also to satisfy him. And when the wife is too tired, or she's not well, or mentally she's not ready, or she's taking care of the child, so there will be a comparison that you are not like what you were actually discussing. You are not like what I have seen in my colleague. You are not like what I have seen in my friends. You are not like what I have seen in my friends' wives. When this comparison takes place, this itself becomes a mental harassment. And if the wife comes to know that yes, some extramarital affair is going on, that itself becomes, a ground for divorce, especially in the Hindu Marriage Act. Obviously, because Hindu Marriage Act basically is a customary law based thing. It is coming, it is there from ancient times, where marriage has been considered as a very sacred institution, where the union of only two people, it's not three people, it's only two people and two families. So in such cases, if the third person also joins, it cannot remain as a marriage. It's a very scientific understanding. It cannot remain as a marriage. So obviously some customs say that the husband can get married to, multiple wives, and that too you would get to see in such customs the consent of the wife is necessary. I hope many of you are understanding that I'm
Right.
talking about the Islamic jurisprudence, where the
Right.
first wife's consent is very, very much necessary. In Hinduism, we do not get to see this, but in every case, if the wife says that no, I am giving up my rights, you can get married. Still, then, at present, in the present understanding, judicial understanding, this may not happen. This may be considered as completely, invalid marriage. So, in all such cases, this is what I wanted to say. If there is an extramarital affair and the wife feels that I'm being cheated, instead of being keep quiet mum, that I want to stay in this marriage for my children, please raise your voice, because don't forget, if you go ahead for a divorce, there is a remedy. There is a, financial remedy that you can claim for, that is matrimonial alimony. That you
Right.
can definitely claim for, because it is not only for you, but the father never divorces the child. The father is always the biological father of the children. So even if the father says that I do not have any connection with the children needs to have maintenance. The children has right to have the maintenance from the father.
So much of insight,
Very
Devarati. I mean,
right. And
so much we are learning, and I hope the viewers, some of them, they can understand and identify with this and get help. What do you think, Shampa?
absolutely, absolutely. A lot of
In
insight, lot of knowledge.
Yeah, I know we have time limit, and I wish we could go ahead with so many questions and everything. But Champa, if I can ask Devaruti two
Mhm.
aspects in this discussion. One is we are talking about when we talk about domestic violence, we identify only by the gender, one particular gender, women. We also I have also personally seen where you talked about 498, which is very much there to help the women, that being
498A.
abused by the women as well, where the
Yeah.
women themselves are into polyandrous relationships,
Yes,
and the
yes,
male person is the victim of domestic violence. It's as Shampa said, it's not gender specific. Even the males
yes,
go
Exactly.
through this. So, what would you say about this in about the 498 violation, how it is being misused, and what are the second part of it is, sometimes, mostly I have seen this, I came across just yesterday on Facebook. This happens mostly northern India. The person goes to India, gets married, comes back here
yes,
to Canada, and then the wife is totally deserted, and she is going through abuse. So these are my two questions that's been going in my mind, if we can address these two given the time we have. Thank you.
yes. Okay, let me address the last question first, because see, for example, if the husband, I'm assuming that you are talking about the man goes back to the country and gets married
Yeah,
and comes back. If the
absolutely.
husband gets married in India and then
Hmm.
again he goes to Canada or UK or US, and gets married to any resident, in
Hmm.
Canada, UK, etc., who are basically from the Indian origin,
Hmm.
this is also considered as not valid marriage, unfortunately, because the first marriage is still existing. Now, many times I have seen that men go to foreign countries, they get married because legally, we have seen the movies also on this, right? So legally, if you get married to a resident of that other country, and you become, there is a myth, you become the citizen of that country. This is not correct, because I do understand that there are many corruptive issues are also there, but believe me, even for this also, I have got my personal experiences. I have seen my, friends. I know cases where the lady, she wanted to, have a better relationship with her husband, and this person cheated her. She was there for more than 16 years. She was a divorcee with a child, and this person comes to Canada and, tries to make her understand that he is going to be the wonderful husband, best, father for the daughter. But finally, when he gets married, he gives a call to the family members of the, the wife, stating that now I am a Canadian citizen. You cannot become a Canadian citizen, because you are already a citizen of India, having your wife in India. So in such cases, definitely, because if the woman is now the permanent resident, or the, or the, citizenship card holder in that country, immediately she can go to the police, and they have their legal assistance cells are also there. She can go to the police. She can definitely complain against this husband. Again, I'm telling that if you are not doing it, that means that now you become the second wife, who is an illegal wife. If you are not doing it, please do remember, from this country, that means from India, the first wife will be making an allegation against both the husband and the wife. So, in order to protect your legal sanctity, it is better that the wife who is getting to see, or found out that, the husband is already married in India, it is better to raise a petition against such kinds of, men, because otherwise she will also have to go through the, level of accused person, or the offender, because she has entered into the marriage, irrespective of the fact whether she knew or she did not know that there was a marriage already existing. This is my answer, because this definitely would be counted as domestic violence. And if the, police stations or police officers in countries like UK, Canada, etc., they've come to know that yes, this man has got married illegally, that means while the first marriage was existing, he has entered into another marriage in, Canada, US, etc., then definitely there is one way by which the woman will be saved, is that, and, that is the ultimate way, deporting this man to back to India. I hope that all of us would understand deporting and exiting. There is a difference between the two. Deporting means you're not going to come back and you are a fugitive offender. So that is something which we have to understand. But again, I'm telling that it is better to protect your legal personality, raise this thing, otherwise, you will be considered as an offender. Coming to the first issue that you stated, can you please repeat this? Repeat the first this thing. I think it was about the misuse of Section 498A.
Right,
Yes,
by
Right.
women. Yeah, by
yes,
By
women
yes.
women.
sometimes. Yeah.
This is not something which is like, uncommon. We do get to see 498A of the Indian Penal Code and even domestic violence law. This is also being heavily misused, mainly because there are cases where I have seen that the woman is cheating in the marriage, just like as I mentioned about the extramarital affair. The woman is cheating in the marriage and she's trying to stay back in the marriage. So in all such cases, the husband can definitely raise, the petition. He can definitely contact the lawyer, and he can bring a, case against the wife, and obviously this can be considered as ground for divorce. This can also be definitely considered as domestic violence, because domestic violence laws scope has, especially in India, has extended to and expanded to include men as victims, especially in cases where they have seen that how the women are abusing Section 498A. Please do remember 498A is specifically giving protection for women who are being tortured by the husbands and the husband's family. Now, suppose, for example, if a woman is telling that, I have been beaten by my in-laws, I have been harassed by my husband, and those wound or those evidences that she produces, when the medical tests are done, it is basically coming up, and also depending upon the examination of the evidences, it comes out that no, it is not the husband or it is neither the in-laws, then the woman will be considered as an offender to bring false allegation against the husband. That can also be considered as something which is coming within the meaning of domestic violence. Further, we are also getting to see that in certain cases, very unfortunately, the daughters in laws, they are bringing cases against the in-laws, like that is the father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister-in-law, including the husband. uh, as I mentioned, if you remember, that the wife is permitted to stay in the marital home. So sometimes we do get to see that the daughter-in-laws are bringing cases to actually grab the property. I use the term grab the property because in such cases, their ultimate aim would be that, I need this property minus the actual owners, or the builders of the property or the makers of the property. I will not use the term builder because politically it is incorrect. So the makers of the property. So if suppose, for example, if the woman proves that yes, there had been abuse on her, then it is a different issue that will be for the woman. But if the woman cannot prove, again the what you call, the burden of proof lies on the man and his family members, that yes, it was a false allegation by the wife, that means it was a mental harassment going on, by the meted out by the wife, then definitely the man has got the legal powers to go ahead to file a case or to file a petition against the wife in the police station, in the nearest police station. The man can also go to the legal aid cell and also raise the issue with the legal aid cell. In both ways it is there. But unfortunately, as we have seen, that there are majority of the cases where the wife gets victimized. So we have to understand that the law is softer towards the women. So if the man is a victim, the man needs to have a very solid proof. Otherwise, say for example, I have personally seen cases where the man ran out, he had a one night stand or two night stand with his girlfriends, and he had cheated in marriage. When the wife comes to know about this, the wife actually cannot control, and all of us have got this human tendency of beating or physically hitting because we are frustrated, we are angry. So that man, who has cheated in the marriage and who has been supported by the family members, his family members, that whatever you have done is correct, this is the way to teach the wife, that because she had been a feminist and she has been so and so and all these things. That man cannot now take this thing that I have been beaten by my wife, and go to the police station and say that, see, there is a black mark here, see, there is a black mark there. No, this is not going to stand, because please do remember, the wife still has got the power and also the legal rights to go to the police as a counter to say, ask him where was he, and if this is proved that he had a sexual relationship, or emotional relationship, which can be adultery, adultery is not considered as an offense now, but still then, to a certain extent, an extramarital affair, and he has violated the rights of other women, also he has cheated this wife, then definitely the man's claim that I have been victimized by my wife mentally and physically, it will be washed away. So this has to be very clearly put in mind, and then only you can go ahead for filing your cases.
Thank you, Debarati.
I have a question here, Devaruti. Since adultery is not illegal, or rather, no, it's not a punishable offense now, how is cheating amounting to domestic violence? Is that really possible? Uh, or is that more, more led to, interpretation?
Fine. First, you have to understand what is adultery. Adultery basically means that when the man is having an illicit relationship with the wife of somebody else. Okay. And when I'm saying cheating or extramarital affair, this other condition may or may not be present. What is that other condition? That means that that woman with him, this man is having a connection. It may or may not be that lady may or may not be the wife of somebody, even if she's wife of somebody. If it is this man is also married and he's having an extramarital affair without telling the wife, obviously no man will be telling the wife, neither any woman will tell the husband that I'm having a third party in the marriage, nobody will tell. Now, in such cases, when the extramarital affair happens, you get to see that maybe both these parties, that means the extramarital pair, will be consenting to each other, relationship, like what Shampa was telling, that there are perpetrators and there are different kinds of perpetrators. So from the victimological perspective, what we get to see is that both are equally guilty, because they know that they are entering into an extramarital affair. Now when I say about extramarital affair, again you have to understand this thing, extramarital. That means that outside the marriage. Now, this
Right.
extramarital affair can happen, with your colleague, with your friends, with third party, etc. But when we get to see that there is again another twist. If the man goes to the brothel, can we consider this as an extramarital affair? The thing is that it may be considered as cheating, but it may not be considered as an extramarital affair because the man is going to the brothel to buy sexual services. In that case, it might not be extramarital, neither it will be adultery. This is something which is completely other thing, which is basically prostitution, and you are contributing to prostitution. This is a gray area which we are not going to talk about right now. But
Right.
when the man is actually going out and cheating, because that will also considered as a cheating. If the woman now comes to know that the man, that means my husband, is not at all what you call my person or my man, because the trust has been broken, definitely that can be considered as an element of domestic violence, that is a mental harassment. So in such cases,
Mhm.
again, it is on the wife to prove that the husband was having an extramarital affair. Husband will always try to in such cases always try to hide this, and the ultimate thing is that the wife is mad. हिंदी में जो हम लोग बोलते हैं that ये लड़की पागल है because she's obsessive, she's too much on me, that she's suspecting and all these things. But you have to understand that when an extramarital affair goes on, please do not forget that the other woman, she can also bring a complaint against this man. If this woman says that that I did not know that you are married, so in such case what happens, even she is also bringing the same case that the wife is bringing, that the wife is telling that I knew you are married to me, but I did not know that you are having an affair with another woman. That means you're breaching the trust in the marriage. And this is a very valid ground. If you see from the Hindu marriage law perspective, this is a very valid ground, extramarital affair. But when the other woman is saying that you were having an affair with me, you never told that you are having a a wife and child. In that case, if that woman brings, let me talk from that angle also. If that woman brings this case that we were supposed to get married, and on the pretext of getting married you had touched me, it's a simple kiss also, it's not that penetrative or non-penetrative sexual assault, it was a kiss. But on the belief that yes, there is there is a kind of sexual intercourse, or sorry, sexual interest in that woman, and you are sharing some kind of mutual interest, etc. But this woman is being hidden the fact that I have already a wife and children. That means that my half salary or my half savings will be going to that family, half will be coming to this this thing. That means my half portion will be for that family, half portion for this family. So both these women have got the right to go to the police and say that we have been cheated. But here the majority, that means the bigger right basically will be falling on the wife, because this is a cheating, this is a breach of trust in the marriage. And please do note that when I'm telling that it is for the woman, same thing can happen for the men also. Men can also be victims in such
Right.
cases. Even though we do get to see that women cannot do adultery, if you see from the legal perspective, if you read the law, like lines of law. But if the woman goes for extramarital affairs, while she's married, the other side can also say that I did not know that you are married. So in such case, the man, that is the so-called lover, he can actually bring a case, and it is necessary that you bring a case. Otherwise, this woman who is basically playing with two men, she can pose as a victim, by the husband, that you are basically suspecting, and therefore it is a mental harassment. And she can also pose as a victim to that lover, stating that I had been physically abused by this man who wanted to exploit me. So in such cases, both these men, they need to protect their, again, legal sanctity by stating that we were not aware about her intentions. So there is a difference of understanding behind this. But being a woman, have gone through many of such cases, and have personally been in such what you call things that you are basically talking about. I have also personally gone through so many things. So in all such cases, I actually support women who have been cheated, women who have been mentally harassed, physically harassed. And I always feel, this is not my personal belief, but this is something where you'll get to see that the women's victimization, if you weigh both these things, women are more victimized than men. It is like a universal truth.
True. True. Absolutely. Thank you, Debaruti. That was quite insightful. And yes, we understood the male perspective also. If men are victimized, if men are targeted and violated, what they can do, giving us that insight is also very important, because these days we do know and we do see many such cases where these things are happening. As much a woman is, targeted. So are men often. So it will be insightful for some who would be watching this, and beneficial as well. So like Lopa has already told us, we were running short of time. I
Yes.
would now move on to Lopa, and we have a very important aspect that I could, sum up through the entire discussion, that, everything amounts to the fact that the victim has to stand for him or herself. If the victim is not coming up and, taking a stand, then no matter what amount of, support, if at all, he or she is getting from the friends and family, uh, no one can actually help, because the victim has to identify that I am being subjected to violence, I have been violated time and again or once, whatever, and I need to stand up for myself. So empowering oneself. And I would like to Lopa to throw some light on that.
Thank you, Shampa. Devarati, I wish we could go on talking. Maybe we should have another session. And thanks to Banglar Badhu
Absolutely.
that we are talking about this. One of the biggest things is for before empowerment is awareness, that we have started talking. If you have gone through a domestic violence, or if you're going through any kind of abuse, start talking, because you never know when other people around you, there are other men and women around you who listen to you, who might hear the story that you're sharing, and might identify with it, and feel that get the power that yes, or maybe just identify, as you rightly said, Champa, that identifying that you are being abused is the first and most important step here. uh,
Absolutely.
Before I go into the empowerment, one of the things that I would like to say, which Debarati touched upon, if you are in US and Canada, this is one of the biggest thing that happens, that women, when they are brought into this country, this I mean North America or UK, women go through a lot of domestic violence because they think that, oh, ये तो कंट्री के बाहर है, यहाँ पे मैं कुछ भी कर सकता हूँ. So that is not the case. Everywhere, you whatever, in UK, US, Canada, you have the hotline to dial. In US and Canada, I can say it is 911. Dial it. If you are going through it, dial it, and immediately there are hundreds of resources that are available. There are shelters. The shelters that I work with in Toronto as well, they provide and they ensure that everything, you are secured, your identity, and you're kept safe, everything is kept private, your children are taken care of. So if you are in a foreign country, you have resources that you can utilize to get help from. So dial the helpline number. There are shelters that would jump in to help you in all these cases, and would actually fight. If you do not have the financial stability, if you do not have the financial resources, they can provide with pro bono lawyers and legal aid services that can help you to address the concern. Coming to the empowerment, I know we are short of time. All I can say is, you know, हमें बचपन से सिखाया जाता है कि put yourself behind everybody else. पहले सबका सोचो. Think about others before you think about yourself. I think it is time that we need to think that I am important. You are important. The mothers need to tell their children that you are important. You have come to this world all alone. You will be leaving this world alone. Whatever lifespan that you have here, it should be, it should bring happiness to you. You should make yourself important first. In any kind of situation, if it's a toxic relationship that you are in, don't think about the society. This is my personal experience, that if you are thinking about the ki log kya sochenge, relatives kya sochenge, don't think about it, because they are not going to help you. They are going to be just mute spectators or bystanders. They're not going to help you in any case. They're not going to provide you with food, shelter, or basic necessities when you need them. So you have to stand up. Education is very, very important. So women, or children, it is very important for children to um, have a good education and have an identity for themselves. This, I have two daughters, and I am telling them every day as well: have your own identity. Buy your own diamond, buy your own jewelry, buy your own car, enjoy yourself. Please do not depend on anybody to buy you a diamond or jewelry or anything. Buy your own birthday gifts, enjoy it as much. You like to go to a concert, go for it alone. That's when you will understand that how important it feel, how good it feels like to be important. Anybody who is going through domestic violence, or if you feel that you are mentally very low, seek the help. If need be, go to a doctor. Don't try yourself to consult a psychiatrist, because in our country, the Asian mentality mostly is, oh, why should I go to a psychotherapist or psychiatrist? I am not insane. मैं क्या पागल हूँ, पागलों के डॉक्टर, मैं दवाई क्यों लूँ? No, go ahead. If that helps you to calm down and think positively, clearly, go and take antidepressants. It's as much as you take a crocin to treat your headache. Another thing, when women go through domestic violence, we always try to shy it away, shove it away under the sheets. Don't do that. Talk to your child. I have always made sure I talk to my children even after there is a fight. Like, fight happens between an husband and wife. There has to be a discord because we are two people staying together. Always talk to your child about what happened, because, like that child who did not know what was happening between their parents, why are they fighting? Why are they screaming? Sit down and explain to your child, because we have this habit of saying kuch nahi, it's okay. Don't do that, because children are very, very vulnerable. They understand, they're very matured. Bring up matured children. So talk to your child. Even if you're going through a divorce, make sure you talk to your child and you explain the whole thing. This is what is coming up, this is what is going to happen. And another thing, this is my personal experience that I'm sharing, is when you're going through a divorce, make sure that you do not use your child as a party to it. Do not talk to him. Do not go there. What was your husband, what was your daddy saying about it? Tell me. Don't engage your child into this, because then you are creating a Hulk, a Frankenstein here. Don't do that. Just say it's a discord between your daddy and me, but when it comes to you, we are together in this. I am here to help you whenever you need me for anything, because in our it is our responsibility that we spread the awareness, we tell them what resources are available, and we raise strong children who can stand up for themselves and who can stand up for others, and they don't be a mute spectators or bystanders. So it's self empowerment is very, very, very important. Understand for self that first that you are being violated. Pehla thappad mara, understand ek thappad ek gali, That is a violation. Who are you to violate me? I am a human being. I am Saksham. I am educated. Who the hell are you to violate me? Nobody. If it's a toxic relationship, walk out of it. Trust me, it feels so good. It feels so good. Sorry, I could go on and on on this.
I know,
Um,
and rightfully so, because this is a topic which is, we all are very passionately and emotionally involved. And as we work, as we see many women and, men, seniors, children going through domestic violence, we strongly feel about it. So this emotion is, justified and totally understandable, Lopa. I would, we don't have time, so as we conclude very quickly, so I would take a cue from what you said. Yes, the first and most important thing is to identify that it is not okay. Domestic violence is not okay, and I am not going to place myself as a victim and pose and continue to remain a victim for life. So identifying is first level. And I have seen, some cases where women do not know and understand while they want to take step, and they end up taking step, but that becomes a very rash. So when you take your stand, even if very short span of time you get, you have to be a very planned and strategic when you are taking your steps towards taking stand, because like Devaruti has time and again mentioned that it amounts, the entire responsibility, the entire you have to prove it that you have been violated, and that proof is very important. So whenever you are taking the decision, whenever you are planning to take a step towards it, it should be a strategic planned decision. It should not be a rash decision. And gather as much proof you can, and then seek legal help. I really liked the part Devaruti highlighted time and again, that you should go for, it is better to go for legal aid than directly going to police, because a lot of times that complicates the scene, and it delays the procedures. So going directly to legal aid cell will actually save you some time, and will guide you better, where the pro bono lawyers will help you, and your case will be designed on those lines where you have better chance to quickly prove the violence against you. So it has to be a strategic step, even if in a very short span. And I also have a message for the family and the society around. If you are noticing, domestic violence, even if the woman, even if the man, whoever is the victim, even if the seniors, whoever is the victim, if you are witnessing it, report it. It might amount to nothing, it might not end up into a case if the victim is not standing up, because that you are raising an alarm that will work against the perpetrator, that will actually make the perpetrator think thousand times before taking any wrong step towards the victim. So even if you are able to raise that alarm, you are helping the victim in some way or other. But like Debaruti has very rightly put it, that do not take your steps in on those lines where you end up being another victim. So safeguard your own right, your own safety, your own legal safety in this case, but definitely call it out, report it if you are able to. That will at least save the victim from a harsh cruelty perhaps. So yes, that's what to conclude from my side. I would move on to Debaruti if she would like to sum the legal part. in 2 lines or so.
Yes. So I would like to share here one, very crucial thing, which probably we had, not addressed, in spite of the fact that we are talking about domestic violence. When we are talking about domestic violence, don't forget, as Shampa has already addressed, we do have our responsibilities to our elders, to our senior citizens. That means our parents. When we are talking about domestic violence, please don't think that those people who are married for 1 or 2 years, they can have domestic violence or they can bring action against domestic violence. When we see that the elderly people, they're also fighting with each other, then we as our their children, we also have to understand that probably they were also undergoing through domestic violence. And as I mentioned that the court will not wait that 20 years, 30 years, why did you come so late? But in such cases it is better, because our parents or our generation, that older generation, they would not like to get the tag of divorce. So in such cases it is better, if they want to stay separately, then let them leave peacefully. I'm saying let them leave peacefully. But if suppose, for example, one parent is with one child, the other parent wants to live separately, that does not mean that parent is becoming your nanny or that parent is becoming your servant at home. If we meet out such kinds of behavior to any parent, whether they are living together or whether they are living separately, that can also be considered as parts of domestic violence towards our parents. Further, as we had a discussion, we had a very expansive discussion about domestic violence. I completely go with both Lopa and Shampa, that if we are not aware about our rights, we will continue to be victimized by domestic violence. And please do remember mothers and also fathers. We are basically making our children be victims of domestic violence of ours, our behaviors. Because as Lopa has correctly mentioned, the children of the victims of domestic violence, they are not going to be the inanimate objects. Many places I have seen that the children, they become withdrawn. So they start losing their interest in studies, etc. And when they grow up, that means when they become adults, they start throwing the hurling abuse, etc., stating that it's because of you, I have seen that you two are fighting, that's why I could not concentrate. It is best that when the entire problem starts, make the child understand that this is not something where we are making a kind of what should I say, a magic world for you, that everything is all right for all of you. Because if the child brings, like when he or she becomes adult, if the child starts hurling abuses, you may consider that what is this, now the child is like hurling abuse to me. But please try to understand that what is the mentality that the child is having, what is the consequence, what is the impact the child had. And in this regard, I must tell, if the child who has now become an adult, if the child has undergone any sexual violence, this sexual violence includes all of us needs to know about this. If the parents, that means if the father especially, try to forcefully show some pornographic content to the mother and the child has seen it, or if the father or the mother, both of them, they try to forcefully come to an amicable situation by seeing something commonly, certain sexually explicit content where the child accidentally or what should I say, not accidentally also, was made a part of it. If the child grows up, she becomes an adult or he becomes an adult, and if he says these things that my parents actually made me to see this, don't forget, the child can go back to the POXO act, and the parents can also be considered as the offenders. Like, this is something which is the beauty of the law. Anybody, irrespective of gender, if the person comes up and says that somebody tried to show me these things which had a long lasting impact in me, or somebody tried to do some kind of sexual abuse, sexual harassment, etc., with me, which is having a long lasting abuse, that person, even if that person is the child's own mother or father, will be considered as an offender. I would like to also mention about a very small example. A girl, I mean, when she was under 18, her father and mother, they were fighting, and she was called by her aunt, the father's sister, and the sister tried to make her understand the child, like what both of you are discussing, that pulling the child towards one camp and the going against another camp. So the family members of the husband tried to make her understand that your mother is not capable of satisfying the husband. Now how do you understand that, that whether they were having some kind of tiff related to the sexual things? What the family members did is that this is a mistake they did. They tried to make the child understand that, see, we have seen, we are older to you, we have seen even before your birth also, that the mother always, I'm going back to the question that Shampa asked, that the mother always tried to deny it, that she should have some kind of better sexual relationship with the husband. And if the husband has cheated the mother, he has done the right thing, because the husband was never satisfied with your mother. When the child revealed this thing, and she was no more the child at that time, when the child revealed this thing, you won't believe what treatment the parents, I'm sorry, the husband and the relatives of the husband got. The child was already adult. When the child actually revealed it, it was just a statement. She was not shown anything. It was over phone call. When the child, now she's an adult, when the child revealed these things, entire family basically got in the radar of the police, because they have generated some sexually explicit content which has impacted a young girl that is still there in her heart. And leave about, can you say that this is a domestic violence? Yes, this is. And this is against that child, now who is an adult. So forget about everything. Now let us concentrate, let us be a little selfish. If as a mother, if I'm feeling that no, I'm not happy in the marriage, it is for my personal good, I need to be separated. I also got to see one question here, that if a woman is now getting some kind of psychiatric treatment, whether on the basis of that the child can be separated. Please do understand, the psychiatric treatment, even though I'm not a psychiatrist or psychologist or a doctor, but as a lawyer, as a law teacher, as a legal professional, I'm telling, the psychiatrist or the psychologist, they will start examining that patient, I'm telling her as a patient, asking what is the reason for that. Now obviously, the parents of the woman may say that there are several other reasons, that she has been tortured and all these things. But the psychiatrist will not only be fed about the information, the psychiatrist will also try to understand what is going inside the mind of the woman. So there can be, the best therapy can be, let the child be united with the mother. And when the mother sees that the child is safe, that tension, the that pagalpan and all these things, pagalpan in the common understanding, everything will be 50% diet down. Because the mother is at peace with herself. The mother knows that the child is not in a very what do you call, disturbing relationship or environment. So the answer is, the child cannot be separated from the mother if the psychiatrist is telling that the mother is not at peace with herself. But yes, there can be situations where the mother can be separated from the child if the mother has become aggressive, if the mother cannot
Right.
stand the child. And it is for the benefit of the child, because in such cases, when we are talking about domestic violence, we cannot ignore the child rights, conventions, child right laws also, which says that above all, it is the welfare of the child which must be seen. So if the child
Right.
is thinking, or if the child is stating that, my mother had beaten me, my mother had thrown things at me when she was with my father, and the father, I have understood that the father was basically throwing abuse, and she was not able to control herself. But I have seen that when the father is not there, I'm very comfortable with my mother. So on this very statement of the child, the court cannot deny that the child should be taken away. On this very basis, again, I'm saying that there are several cases, there are several petitions have been filed, by the mother, stating that I'm absolutely all right. Why? Because I'm also telling this thing. Maybe the mother is getting psychological counseling or psychiatrist's counseling because the husband has told that she is undergoing some hormone changes. She is going through some kind of very disruptive, or rather I would say aggressive things, and therefore she needs to have some kind of psychological aspect. If you don't believe me, you have to believe me. I have seen husbands, they have told that their wives are mad. I mean, literally it is mad. It is not psychological disruptive thing, but what we understand by madness is that you lose control over your brain. by
Right.
stating that the husbands had made the wives to go through like the shock treatment. And in that case, the wife has has started losing all her physical and mental balance, and the husband was very happily having a third party affair also. These things as also I have seen. But in such cases also, the court has to understand that who basically made the wife to go for psychiatrist treatment. Was it the wife herself, or the the legal aid authorities, they said that you can go ahead for psychological understanding, or was it a marriage counselor? When I talk about marriage counselor, please do understand, marriage counselors cannot be some persons who are without any training or without any license, because such kind of marriage counselors you can get in your next door neighborhood also. Tachis, mosis, mummies, buas, all of them are better marriage counselors, but they cannot send you for psychiatric treatment. It should be licensed, trained marriage counselors who can tell you that now you can go for psychiatric treatment. And on this very basis, whether the child will be separated from the mother or not, that should be decided. Again, I'm telling that if suppose, for example, it is a case of aggression, for the temporary period, the child can be separated from the mother. But when the psychiatrist gives the permission that no, now the wife, or the now the victim basically is stable, she can have the child with her, then immediately the child should be reunited with the mother, because in such cases we are forgetting about the child's psychological aspect also. So it's best if the mother and the child both should stay together. And I completely go with Lopa, what she stated, that mother and the child should be best friends, in such cases, because the child has to understand that the situation is not normal. And also in other cases, if you talk about father and the child, if the father is going through such kinds of cases, then the father and the child should be best friends. But again, as you all have stated very clearly, the child should not be pulled to this camp against that camp. So that will be another case coming up.
Right. Thank you, Debaroti. That was really insightful. Lopa, some concluding statement from your side?
Thank you. I think we are over the time. We would conclude this saying that probably this needs another discussion time, and we can come back with another discussion session. All I want
Yes.
to
Right.
say is jago, jago. Step forward. There is
Yes.
nothing. We have been we have been praised as Durga and Kali. Let's come up with that and step up. Value yourself. That's the most important thing, because a child will make you. I mean, as a parent, as parents, we are the role models for our children. So the moment they see that we value ourselves and we pay attention to us, we pay importance to us, they will also learn the same thing. So we can bring in a generation which will stand up against the violence, and slowly this violence can probably diminish or go away forever. So thank you so much for having me over the discussion for the discussion.
Thank you, Lopa. Thank you, Debaruti. It's been a really insightful, emotional, and very, meaningful discussion. And yes, very rightly said. I would conclude on that note only. Khudi ko kar buland. So let us all be the change that you want. We want, our society to change into. So let us take those steps towards. Violence free society for whoever it is. And so we'll be ending on that note. And I would like to thank Orpita for supporting us from back end, and Shraddha as well, and the entire Banglar Bodhu team for having such meaningful sessions through Monojiban and other platforms of Banglar Bodhu. May we keep doing such meaningful activities and sessions for the people in the coming days of this year as well. And for the viewers who have, joined late and would want to catch up the entire conversation, please note that you can either, after we conclude this, after this live ends in some time now, this won't be visible for 24 hours on Banglar Bodhu channel, YouTube channel right away. And if you really want to watch it right away, you have to go through the link. Otherwise, after 24 hours this will be again back restored, since we have less number of subscribers, perhaps some issues. So do subscribe Banglar Bodhu and make it a bigger platform so that we are able to cater to many such meaningful conversations and issues. And thank you so much. Thank you, Debaroti, Lopa. So on that note, we say bye to everyone.
Bye bye. Good night.
Good
And have
night.
a wonderful weekend. Good night.